I had been married to my husband for over 3 decades when I tied my hair back, slipped on a plain black apron, and walked into his retirement party pretending to be someone else. I told myself it was just curiosity, a harmless way to see how he spoke when I wasn't beside him, but as I moved quietly between tables, carrying glasses and smiling politely, I heard conversations I was never meant to hear. Words about our marriage, about sacrifices I thought were shared, and about a truth he had never once said to my face. In that moment, standing there unnoticed, I realized the life I believed we built together might not be the same story he had been telling others. If this story resonates with you, you're welcome to quietly support the channel by liking and subscribing for more real-life stories like this. I didn't plan to disguise myself as a waitress out of suspicion at first, but out of a quiet fear I couldn't name, the kind that grows when a marriage has lasted decades and yet suddenly feels unfamiliar. The night of my husband's retirement party should have been a celebration of stability, of everything we had built together, but as I tied my hair back and slipped into the borrowed uniform, I already felt like an outsider in my own life. We had met young, built a family, paid off a modest home, and settled into routines that felt safe if not always warm, and I had learned to accept that love, over time, becomes quieter. I told myself that my unease was just aging, just anxiety about the future, but there had been signs I ignored, late nights, hushed phone calls, a distance in his eyes that wasn't there before. I grew up believing that strong women endure rather than confront, and that belief had shaped my marriage more than I realized. At the party, surrounded by colleagues and friends praising his loyalty and dedication, I moved between tables unnoticed, carrying trays and listening more than serving. It was strange how invisible I felt, how easily people spoke freely when they believed no one important was listening. As I refilled glasses, I caught fragments of conversations that didn't match the man I thought I knew, jokes that hinted at shared secrets, knowing looks exchanged when his name was mentioned. My heart tightened, but I kept moving, reminding myself not to jump to conclusions, that after so many years together, trust should come naturally. Then I saw him across the room, laughing with a woman I didn't recognize, his posture relaxed in a way I hadn't seen at home in years, and something inside me shifted. I remembered the sacrifices I had made quietly, the opportunities one let pass so our life could remain steady, and I wondered when my role had become so small. As the night went on, the weight of what I was overhearing pressed harder against my chest, and I realized I was no longer just curious, I was afraid. Afraid of what I might learn, and even more afraid of what it would mean to finally acknowledge that the life I believed in might not be as honest as I thought. By the time the speeches began, I was standing near the edge of the room, holding a tray with shaking hands, knowing that whatever truth surfaced that night would force me to choose between staying silent once again or facing a reality I had spent years avoiding. I stayed in that uniform longer than I needed to, moving quietly between tables, listening more than serving, and with every smile I forced, something inside me hardened into clarity rather than anger. I heard stories about my husband I had never been told, moments he shared with colleagues but never brought home, jokes that revealed how long I had been absent from his inner world even while standing beside him every day. What hurt most wasn't the discovery of a specific betrayal, but the realization that our marriage had slowly turned into a partnership built on habit instead of truth. When one of his coworkers thanked me for letting him live so freely, I understood then that I had mistaken silence for support, and patience for love. Near the end of the evening, my husband finally noticed me standing near the back of the room, still holding a tray, and the look on his face told me he understood immediately what I had done. We didn't argue that night, and we didn't cry either, because exhaustion had replaced all of that. Days later, we sat across from each other at our kitchen table, the same place where we had once planned our future, and for the first time in years, we spoke honestly without trying to protect each other from discomfort. He admitted he had felt invisible in our later years, while I admitted I had been afraid to ask for more, worried that wanting closeness would make me seem ungrateful. The truth wasn't explosive, it was quiet and heavy, like setting down a weight we had both been carrying without naming it. I realized then that disguising myself hadn't been about catching him in something wrong, but about giving myself permission to finally see our life clearly. The choice I faced wasn't dramatic, but it was defining. Continue living beside someone while shrinking myself, or create space where my voice mattered, even if that space was uncertain. In the end, we chose not to rush into fixing anything, but to redraw boundaries, to learn how to speak again without fear, and to accept that love in later life requires courage just as much as it did in the beginning. The healing didn't come from uncovering secrets, but from acknowledging the quiet neglect we had both allowed. I learned that protecting a marriage should never mean disappearing inside it, and that sometimes the bravest act isn't confronting someone else, but finally listening to what your own silence has been trying to say.